So let's start this training, which will be on exporting and importing solutions. And we will discuss the following topics. We will have a brief introduction to the solutions, which are our containers for the changes we do to the system. And we will see how we can export a solution as managed and unmanaged, which are two concepts that I briefly introduced them when I was hitting you with all the information that I could think about. And now that we are seeing things a little bit more in detail, I will reintroduce them. And managed is similar to a compiled application, and managed is like deploying a script or a source code, let's say. And then we will import first the managed solution into one of the other environments and talk about benefits and limitations that managed solutions have. And then we will import an unmanaged solution and talk about benefits and limitations for unmanaged solutions. Microsoft strongly encourages all independent software vendors, which are the software companies that do the customizations for different clients, to use managed solutions almost everywhere, and unmanaged solutions only for the development environment, for reasons that can be read in the solution lifecycle management document. Now we implemented a simple JavaScript functionality in my environment, and what we want to do is to we have that functionality in one specific solution, which is discount percentage. And what we want to do is to let's say to apply this functionality to another system, which for example will be Bleona. And in the real world, it must be thought about like I want to deploy my changes in the user acceptance test system, for example, and test the changes in a more controlled environment than the development one. Or I want to deploy the changes in production because it passed all the tests and quality tests, and so the client should use our functionality. So a solution is a container of resources that are our customizations. For example, this solution contains an existing and not a custom one, an existing entity, which is a out-of-the-box entity, which is sales order and sales order details, sorry, which it's the entity name is sales order detail and the display name is order product. So, and we have included this one, and the fields actually I didn't mention it before, but custom fields have a prefix which is dependent on the which is our publisher, and each publisher has a prefix. Just open this, which can be specified here. So if different software companies develop different functionalities, they have their own prefix, so they have their own responsibilities, let's say, if they break things. That's why this is needed. And I won't go too much into detail on what our functionality was. We have a JavaScript web resource, and we have two existing fields and one field that is an edit field. And I'm pointing that this is a new field which we created for the system because this field will be really important in the distinction of or better will have different effects if our solution is managed or unmanaged when we will import it into the other system, in the target system. So let's close this and go into our solutions. Now what we want to do is to export our solution, and as Microsoft recommends to publish all customizations because only the published are exported. If you have some customizations which you have saved but you didn't publish, you didn't click the publish all customizations button, it means that publishing is like compiling, let's say, your application. You have the source code which is latest, but the actual application is not the latest because you haven't compiled your application. So you need to publish. It was just some weird analogy with, it's not actually compiling our application, but it's something similar. And as I told you before, this is a costly operation, so it takes a lot of time to do because it clears all the caches and rebuilds some relations and other internal stuff which we don't know what Microsoft has done, but okay, it's finished. Now, this advanced here probably tells us to not touch anything here. And we are to the point where we have to choose if we want to export it as an unmanaged solution or as an managed solution. And if you read the descriptions, let's say the important part is here. If it is unmanaged, you can modify that solution and you can even export it in the future. If it is managed solution, you cannot modify it or export it as an unmanaged, let's say, change it from managed to unmanaged, because this is a compiled application and you don't have access to the source code. Always in analogy to our desktop applications, let's say. So let's export it both ways because we need to experiment with both. Export it managed, so we follow our plan. First was import and manage, so I'm exporting as managed. I think I lost my window. Something strange. Okay. Now I'm getting the file because it auto closed when I chose that I want to export it, and it's actually downloaded the solution so it can be deployed in another system. Since I try to keep my dependencies low, as you can see, this file size is small. If I would have taken all the dependencies, then this file would have been a lot bigger, like even megabytes, because you have information for every field that you have a dependency on, and every change and every assembly that you have registered. That was a bug because the file should have been like this, but there's a bug actually currently in the system that puts the single quotes in the file, so it's named in the wrong format. So we have our managed solution. Now what we want to do is to import our solution in the other environment. And to import our solutions, we go to the solution management form, and we want to import a solution. Now, since the solution is managed, we will not have access to a lot of things. Let's say the load. This was the solution. Next, we can see the details inside, but we are not interested for the moment. And since the solution is managed, this will take a lot less time than the other one, which will be unmanaged to apply. So if this seems slow, consider measuring the other one. And this completed successfully. It shows the status of everything that it has done. And usually if we don't have problems, we don't even see what happened. And we close. Now we have our solution, which has been imported into the system, but it is of type managed. If we go in my system where I exported it from, it is of type unmanaged. And if we open this, since it is a managed solution, you have a big warning here that you cannot modify the solution, but you can see what its components are up to a certain extent. Let's say you cannot go and see what's the content of the web resource directly. And I say directly because you can always open the URL of that web resource and see its contents. Or you can see in the network, for example, of the developer tools, this file when it gets loaded on the system, and you can see its contents. But you cannot see it from here. And you cannot change anything for the entities or for whatever. But we can navigate in the system, and one important thing is that since I imported the solution as a managed one, here I see only the custom field that I added. I don't see the other two fields that were that I didn't change and were only dependencies in the system. And I did that only to have some degree, let's call it, of protection by creating a dependency, and there will be a dependency on the versioning of the solutions which declare those fields, and it will have the effect that if I have dependency, let's call it mismatch, but I don't have the right term, then I will not be allowed to import my solution because there will be a conflict of versions. That's why I try to keep dependencies on fields that I have used, even though I did not modify those two fields. But if someone else modifies them, I have a dependency on the modified field, not on the default field, let's call it. And I create the dependency at the moment that I export my. It's we will see it in the future, but it's a safety mechanism that we can use. So we imported the solution, and if we go and see an order, which will take us 2 minutes more than initially thought, because we have to create the price list and the other items here too. So test managed. So we have to create a price list. I'll try to be quick. Save. Since just a side note, I don't know if you noticed, but before saving, I did not have the possibility to add a related price list item, let's say. And that is because those are two different entities, and I cannot relate with something which does not exist yet. So if I have not created the base price, the price list, I cannot add the price list item because I cannot relate it to a price list from that view. So I'll have to create a product. So new, I'm using shortcuts and I'm trying to go fast because in the how to develop a JavaScript plugin, we went through this. So it's always free hugs and hugs 000 because it's free. Default unit group, default primary unit, decimal supported 3. These are just configurations that depend on the use case. I have to publish my product, close, and choose this one and save. No, I have not chosen my unit. Okay, save amount. Always for the same reason, even for the free stuff, we have a price because we have costs. And I think this is okay. And now I can create my, oops, don't have a, I can create my order so I can add my product. And as you can see, I have the discount percentage functionality, which we developed in our in our other system, and we import it in the system as a managed solution. And in theory, this should work as expected. So I can save my changes, and this is how managed managed applies the changes, let's say, and we just uh, added some functionality to the system by using the solutions, which was created, let's say, in another system. Now, benefits and limitations. The one of the benefits of the managed solution was that we cannot change the solution in the target environment. So it means that we are 100% sure that that package is the right version, let's say, and has the right let's say the right files in it. Because if it is unmanaged, probably someone goes and touches the file, but we cannot be sure that someone modified something or not. And this is a big advantage from an operations point of view, because you know how the system should behave in relation to your change. Another benefit is that usually changes that are applied in the managed solutions are handled in a better way by the system, so functionality work a little bit faster. Let's say might get compressed the file, or might get cached in a better way from the system, so it loads faster. JavaScript runs the same because it's not running on the system, it runs on the client PC, let's say, in the client browser, so that will not change. Now, drawbacks or limitations. The major drawback or limitation that you have with managed solution is that there are two. One is some kind of paradox that actually you cannot change the managed solution, and there are a lot of people that want to do hot fixes, let's call them, which are highly discouraged to do. But there are a lot of people that when they are in the production environment, they see a bug and know a quick fix for that and want to apply that. You cannot do that with a managed solution. There are ways to give some degree of freedom, let's say, so you can correct small things, but you cannot do, let's say, a modification for something that was not planned to. You have to plan for some parts of your system to be modifiable or customizable. And this was the easy, let's say, limitation. The 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 bad limitation is that if we remove our solution from the system, this discount percentage field and all its data will get deleted from the system. And this is a problem because the deleted data, let's say, if we don't have a backup, cannot be restored. So let's just delete this customization. Which means uninstall solution. But the synonyms and the namings are something we have to get used to. Because if there are 3 synonyms, Microsoft calls them in 4 ways because they will have a typo somewhere. So we removed our customization, and if we go and see our order, it does not delete our order, but deletes the only the parts that our solution was owner, let's say, which was our percentage, discount percentage. Sorry. And as we can see, the order is still there. The order detail, when it loads, will be still there. If I open the form, I don't have a discount percentage because I removed the customization. But to show you that the data get really deleted and we lose everything from that, I'll apply our customization by importing it again in the system. So we have the same field, but we'll see that we lost the value that we applied because we did not save this data somewhere. So if I go and open, not here, our form again and refresh, you will see that discount percentage is null. It's not assigned, has its default value. So manual discount is 10. We lost this data. Now I'll leave this system as it is and go in my system and export this solution as an unmanaged solution. I'm not publishing again because I did it before. So unmanaged, I will export. I will wait for the solution to download. And fix the bug, which I hope it will be temporary. And now go into Geno's environment to see what are the effects of importing an unmanaged solution. Now, if I import, choose the file, download, discount percentage without managed means unmanaged. Next, we will get some information like a warning here. It is an unmanaged solution. Do not install this solution if you want to roll back these changes, which as I told you, with when I showed you the managed solution, when I removed the solution, it deleted all the data. This solution, when I will remove it, it will delete nothing, because the problem is that unmanaged solutions are just containers, and you can see them like a virtual container, which means that it's like an interface in the programming, where interface means you are not changing the class, but you are changing only a subset of the, you are viewing only a subset of the class. And it's the same with unmanaged solutions. You are actually not uh, owning, let's say, the entire changes, but you are just seeing some, you are grouping. But if you import this, and we have the option to publish these customizations because this solution was unmanaged, a step which we didn't have to do in the managed solution, because uh, they are already published and it's packed and it's compiled, let's say. And we'll have to wait, as I told you, the import of the managed solution, we waited only for the import part, and then it was ready for use. Instead, now we'll have to wait for import part, and then we'll have to wait for the publishing part of the solution. And we cannot do other things with the system in the meanwhile. So, for example, in high traffic environments, like a production system with, I don't know, with 100 users, you cannot do this kind of work, let's say, without interrupting the normal work of the person. So usually it gets done like late in the evening, or when there is not so many people using the system. And as we can see, I opened the solution and everything here is modifiable as in the original solution. I can publish, delete, do everything, change everything. And I won't go into detail what is inside, because we already know. So I'll go and create an order and see our functionality. We'll use 5 more minutes to create the price list and everything. I need to save, and I can go now. This kind of setup is done, let's say, once, and then will be changed every time that the company has new products to sell, or there will be some changes. And usually it's not the CRM who manages the products, because it's more an ERP concern to manage the products, and they get synchronized from one system to the other with some kind of integration. And always free hugs. Hugging is good. This is a hug code, and the unit group, default unit, and primary unit, and decimals 0. And I think I have, okay, I will publish, and we'll add this one to the to the product, and choose the primary unit and save. Always the amount. This organization has more expenses to operate, so it's 200 leg. Now I can save. No, I didn't choose. If you noticed from the icon, this is an account. It's not a contact because Gino does not have a contact, let's say, in his system. So I'm choosing an account, and the customer is a special kind of entity which can reference an account or a contact. But from the API, let's say, from the SDK, we don't have direct access to the customer entity, and we will have to see what limitations it gives us, because there are always limitations which need workarounds. So we'll add the product free hugs, and oops, I wanted to open it. And as we can see, we have our functionality here applied as well, and it works all as expected. Now, let's go and okay. Okay. Let's go and see what are the benefits and the limitations that we have in the unmanaged solution. Now, one benefit, which is even a limitation, let's say, even for the managed solution, is that you can modify the code. In the unmanaged solution, this benefit and limitation was that you cannot modify the solution. Here is the opposite one, but it's always depending on the points of view and depends on what are the needs of the users. Here you can basically change everything. I won't change it because I don't want to break my functionality. I just shown you before that you can actually change everything. And let's go to the other limitation. The other limitation is that every change we make in the unmanaged layer, because there is a layer for each change, and each managed solution applies a different layer of that change, and we can go into details when we understand a little bit more of how it works. But there are some layers, and the last layer that gets applied to the system is the unmanaged layer, and every unmanaged solution is part of the same layer. And now I talked about the layers because the limitation is that I don't know if you want to guess what happens if I delete this solution, which I will delete. We did not have the other warnings like you will lose data, which it's a hint for you to know what will happen if we delete that. And I actually give you hints while I talk, because I told you that unmanaged solutions are in the same, unmanaged changes are in the same layer. And I think I told you that the unmanaged solution is only a virtual container, like an interface. So if I remove that interface, I'm not changing the class, let's say. I just don't have a way to see that specific interface anymore from the class, but I'm not changing the class. And we don't have a compiler which will complain that you have specified an interface and not implemented it. It's just a joke again. So if I refresh my form here, I will see that I still have the discount percentage field, which in the other managed solution, it got removed from the system. Now my changes are still active in the system, even though I removed the solution. And this is the worst thing that can happen, let's say, in a production system, because you want to try some functionality, and Clint has developed the functionality, and you say, okay, Clint, give me your solution so I can try it, and if people like it, then I can pay you for it. But if they don't want it, then I want to remove it, no? If we do it in the, if we import a managed solution, then we are doing what we think we are doing. If we import an unmanaged solution, then there is no way to remove those customizations from the system. The only way to solve this problem is to do compensating changes, which I don't know if you know the concept, but it means that you cannot delete anything, but you have to do another change which will bring the state of the system into the initial one. So if I, with an unmanaged solution, if I change a field length, let's say from 2 to 5, the only possible operation I can do is to uh, do another change and change that length from 5 to 2. And I will have, let's say, 3 changes: the original one, and the change to 5, then change to 2, which I think was the original one. And this is a problem, because I think was the original one, but if Microsoft, for example, or whichever vendor has the ownership on that field changes that value, it will not change, because it will be the field that I think was initially. And this is the problem with compensating changes. Instead, with a managed solution, we just remove it and it gets deleted, and all changes that solution has done to our environment get rolled back, and they have the default solution, let's say, the default values for everything, so I don't have to compensate anything. And as we can see, those changes remained in the system. I can even do create a new solution which is for my system, not from the team solution. Gino, as I can see, has not created a publisher yet. I can create it because the other publisher was from my system. But these are small details. One thing to note is that usually we should change the prefix of our entities, because if we leave the default one, we will have the same prefix with everyone which made the same mistake, did not change the default one. So we will have conflicts with at least every other person that did the same mistake. So if we do a prefix which is ours, it's better. And this what I want to show you is the team. Oops. Just have to find out what language is my keyboard, but okay, but team changes his mind every time. I created a new unmanaged solution in Geno system because, as I told before, unmanaged solutions are just a window to view the changes that our system has, and a window to provide new changes to our system. So I can do add existing, and if I go into the order, which I think I passed, okay, order product, okay. As always, I don't include any metadata. What I want to see is the fields. For example, I can see here that the change that my unmanaged solution introduced to the system is still available. And I can even make it as my own, let's say, and okay, yeah, include this required component because that was because I did the dependencies by adding everything in my solution. And I can even start changing, let's say, I can see that the web resource actually it's not here listed, and I can even add that and start modifying it. Web resources, I have to find the BB. Good luck. The problem where there are a lot of changes is that you have to find the right one. And it's this one I was looking for. So basically, when this decides to refresh, okay, I have created another solution which has almost the same changes that my unmanaged solution, which introduced these changes, has. And now I can start doing compensating changes to bring my system into the initial, let's say, state. And to do those changes, I have to go here. I know that the form does not have a discount percentage field, and I have to remove this. And I know that probably in the form there is not an this let's say this library should not be included, so I have to remove it. What I'm doing is I'm doing compensating changes. I'm modifying the system again to bring it into the initial state. The problem with these changes is that most probably if Microsoft changes this form, we will need to request support from Microsoft because those changes will not be applied to our system because we did a compensating change. And then Microsoft will show us the solution lifecycle management document and why they prefer the managed solution. And I think that with this I have explained everything there is to know about the managed and unmanaged solutions and what are the solution uses, let's say. And there I will just tell one small detail, but we won't go into it, is that there is the possibility to clone a patch and clone a solution, and these two are used to do incremental changes to our solution. So for example, if I have my version 1.0.0 and I have exported it as a managed solution and imported it into another system, and then the client tells me that I have a bug. To fix that bug, I have to create a patch, for example, and have the patch with version 1.0.1 and export that patch as a managed solution again and apply that patch into the client's system so it fixes the bug. And there is the clone solution for creating not bug fixes, let's say, but feature updates. And the difference is that bug fixes apply to the same layer that we have our solution, let's say, the changes. Instead, the new functionality creates a new layer. if things are applied in the right order and with the right settings, with the right setup. And if you don't have questions, I think